Was that it?
I don't know. I caught another time, though.
Okay, well, that's going to be confusing when I sync it up, I guess.
Everyone, and welcome back to the Atcast, a podcast for the study of modern visual culture. I'm your respected and loved Takanenohana Student Council President, Renu.
And I'm your secretly attractive stalker weirdo, Suki.
This week at stands for Absolute Territory because we'll be talking about what we're watching in the fall 2019 anime season. Yes, finally we're here. But before we get into that, what have you been up to?
Okay, so I've got a saga.
You've been through things.
I have been through so much since we recorded the last episode. It has been like, it has been so long, like, because I basically originally was going to, edit the episode and have it up by the normal time. And that would have been Gucci and fine or whatever. But I was busy and we recorded really I think we recorded on Thursday or something before it was supposed to go up.
Yeah.
And I just didn't really have the energy to do it. So I was like, well, okay, I'll just do it over the weekend. Now the only problem is, Saturday in the evening, my power went out because I live in the Bay Area, which is to say, I'm at the whim and mercy of PG&E as they try to cut costs by not maintaining their power lines and causing fires all the time. So whenever there's a lot of wind, instead of doing the normal thing, which is to have already done the maintenance a while ago and to just sort of be like, oh, sorry, okay, the power's gonna be off for a couple hours, we're gonna do some maintenance, it's whatever, so that, the state doesn't catch on fire. But instead what they do is they're just gonna let them go until they get, weather reports that are like, oh, there's gonna be a lot of wind today. And they're like, that sounds pretty dangerous. Let's shut the power off for a while. And that's what happened to me, basically. So from Saturday to Tuesday evening, I did not have power.
That's a long time.
Yep. It was a long time without any power. And at a certain point, I just had to pack up all my stuff and go somewhere else and just stay with my friend. I can't
live like this in this modern era.
Exactly. So the thing about it is I legitimately was like, this sucks, whatever. And holy crap. Okay. Mm-hmm. My week that week was so stressful. At a certain point I left my home where there's no power, or where there was no power, because the cell signal started to drop as well. So I stopped having cell signal.
Oh no.
like 1 or 2 nights into not having power.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because then I wouldn't know if there was a fire.
Right.
And so I drove to my parents' house, that they're fixing up. It's because it's still livable, right? And I went over there and I ate lunch on, I think, Sunday. I think this was Sunday. And about 5 minutes after eating lunch, when I'm just sort of getting settled, my phone goes off and there's an emergency alert text that says, hey, the area you're in is on fire, so evacuate, please. So
that's one way to find out,
So I legit and at this point, my car was running a little bit low on gas because, I I've been having to drive it around so that I wouldn't be home and not doing anything where the power is not existent. And I ended up going into the city, into San Francisco, unexpectedly. I really was wanting to have a chill day, but apparently no. And on the way out, because of the sort of panic, there was no cell signal because it was like saturated with everybody like using their phones and stuff. And I guess like one of the like towers went down or something. Yeah. And on the way out, I saw the fucking fire.
Whoa, dude.
With my eyes. I saw the planes and the helicopters coming in to douse it with water. Like I legit saw the smoke rising on the highway as I was like leaving.
Oh my god, dude.
So that was fun. Luckily they got that sorted relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And boy, that sucked. But yeah, my power didn't really come back until Tuesday night, and I was not able to be at home by then anyway because I was at my friend's house because like I was going to the Discord Halloween party is basically why. And so I just spent like, half a week at my friend's place as a climate refugee.
I mean, I had to do that for Harvey, so I feel that.
Yeah. So hopefully that's something that starts to not happen anymore. Because, stuff is only going to get drier and more bad. So
yeah.
At a certain point, I just hope that PG&E just gets converted into public utilities, and then suddenly this problem is less of a problem. Because the only reason that this keeps happening is because they're just bad at maintaining, because they're like, well, if we maintenance, it's gonna cost money, and also we'll have to maybe shut down the power for like 3 hours, and if we do that, people won't buy our service, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life, because PG&E is the only power provider in this area, which is why no one had power. It was actually really distressing, like driving around at night, because all of the streetlights were out and you could only see by the light of the cars, which was kind of spooky and like
that's wild, dude.
Right, and it's spooky because it's in kind of a like a nice residential area, but there's just no lights whatsoever.
Bro,
except
it's
for
like apocalypse, man.
It was extremely apocalyptic. The only places that had power were like the Target and the Whole Foods, and the Whole Foods only had power because they were driving in like generator batteries, basically.
Right. That's what I was thinking. They probably had generators to power their store.
And it was, I only really I went to the Whole Foods near my house like a day or two into the power outage, and it was wild. There were so many people there. There was so little food on the shelves. It was actually terrifying.
Actual apocalypse, dude.
It legitimately felt highly apocalyptic, which is, the kind of fun time you want to have on a weekend, really.
Yeah, Don't you sometimes want to shake up your daily life?
Oh my goodness, it was pretty rough. So that's the reason I did not get the podcast out until Friday of last week. It was because my power was not there for half the week, and then I wasn't there for like most of the rest of the week.
You're all right, man.
But I got it together, I got it out, and now we'll have an episode. I guess it has been technically 2 weeks now that I think about it. Yeah. Which means it's been actually a month since we've recorded.
It's okay.
Oh well. Yeah, so that's I don't know, it's weird stuff. I don't want to go through that again. That sucked. Like that could have been much better. But here I am. I'm still alive, so whatever.
Yay.
I mean, other than that, like, my life hasn't really calmed down because I started doing like NaNoWriMo, which was probably a mistake. I okay. So at this point in time, I should be about 20,000 words in.
Yeah.
I am 8,000.
Oh, here we go.
So I am pretty heavily behind because the rest of my life has not calmed down to compensate for the fact that I'm doing this novel writing thing. And
yeah.
I started to do work. So I started volunteering where I want to work at and offering my free, unpaid, delicious volunteer labor.
Labor, so free. Well, it's quite tough for us to just kind of put our lives on pause for a month while we try to get something creatively done. So we do what we can.
Yes, so I am 8,000 words into NaNoWriMo. I should be more than twice that. I'm going to buckle down and get some words tapped out tonight after I record this. So, yikes. But yeah, other than that, I've been... I will say this about the novel writing thing. Part of it is I'm having some amount of trouble because I don't usually write long-form fiction. I haven't in a really long time, and the only time I really ever did was like in high school when I was like role-playing. But here I am now, and it's just like me role-playing, but with myself. But I mean, it's actually really fun, and I'm really glad that you over the course of when I had no power sent me the designs for the thing so that I could use those characters in my thing.
Oh yes.
So I'm borrowing Renu's precious characters for my my novel, and it's gonna be really fun. I'll talk to you about it after the month is over when I can talk about it. Yeah, I might take like a pass through it and see if I can edit it to make it, consistent and not awful to read through, because the starting bit of it is pretty rough because my brain had not yet adjusted to like anything, and I think even still it's a little bit like I could be doing more to grease those wheels. Anyway, I've never been a super detail oriented person. I'm a broad brushstrokes kind of person. But that's been a lot of fun, actually. Surprisingly, even though I started it on the week I was starting working with my volunteered labor, which is not ideal. Just because I'm volunteering almost as if I was a full-time worker, right? Like I'm working probably 30 to 32 hours a week.
So
9 to 5 Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
And that's not the worst, honestly, because at least people are seeing my face and maybe they'll be like, oh, we should give Supa a job. Which is the hope at any rate. I think my boss is working really hard to try to get that to happen.
Oh,
sounds like she's
good.
trying really hard. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I did some hanging out with my dear friends in the East Bay recently, like 2 or 3 days ago. That was actually really fun. And
good.
And yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm not as far along in my novel writing process as I want to be, but what can you do?
Yeah, you're doing what you can, which is
I'm doing what I
can ask for.
Yeah. What have you been up to?
I finished Inktober, which was my version of your NaNoWriMo.
Oh boy.
And so now I don't know what to do with myself. I'm so used to spending every waking moment trying to draw and get this thing done now because it's been a month. And doing like we're drawing on lunch breaks, drawing as soon as I get home after I cook dinner and shower and everything, and just like not spending as much time with people, I guess, and just like being like, okay, I gotta work, gotta do this thing. I try not to like obviously shut out my social life completely, but it was definitely more pressure to just try and squeeze in more time to work on this challenge. But yeah, it's done. I have not posted it yet. I plan on making like a video or something of it. That would be pretty nice.
Okay.
And posting it somewhere. Yeah, other than that, I've also been using the Inktober time now that I have free time to watch the new anime. So I was able to watch a bit more than I usually do, which is exciting.
I was gonna say, looking at this list, we've completely flip-flopped.
Yeah.
Because you watched, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 anime.
Yeah. 4 things
that I did not watch, and I watched half of an episode of an anime that you didn't watch.
It's all right, man. I didn't have to deal with like fire in my area.
That's true. I am sitting here, doing work 4 days a week and recording this podcast and watching anime for the podcast and, writing a novel and playing my games of D&D.
I tried to play games too.
my 3 games of D&D a week.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, that does remind me one last thing. Before I let you continue. So my team for the Overwatch tournament, we're in like the last stretch, like the last 2 weeks of it, potentially up to 2 weeks, because we did not make it far enough to get into playoffs, but we were really close, and they had a redemption bracket basically where you play like a miniature version of each game to advance, and we won our games and clinched a spot in the playoff.
What? That's crazy, dude. Congrats.
I will not hope for anything, because that's the most surefire way of getting your heart broken. But we made it to Koshien, and now we're gonna try our best.
Yes.
So yeah, I 2 more weeks, and then I will be free of this responsibility for the rest of my life, probably.
Well,
mostly just because
proud of you really hung in there.
Yeah, mostly because it's not like super sustainable for my schedule really to continue it. Like I would think I would just start to drag the team down.
Soupy, are you learning how to cull your schedule a bit?
Yeah, but it will only help so much because it already clashes with my Saturday D&D game, which is part of the reason I'm dropping it.
Well, there you go. You're learning how to not double buck. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else that you've been up to?
Yeah. I haven't been up to much else other than that. Just like winding down from my drawing heck. A friend of mine roped me into an artist boot camp that he started up this month, and I'm really upset with him.
Uh-huh.
So thankfully he's starting off really light, so that's the only reason why I agreed. But also, like, I was like, well, I hate you, but also I guess it's good that I continue this habit of drawing every day, even if it's something dumb, like, or really small.
I mean, I understand the feeling. Like, even when I'm done with this novel, even if I don't hit 50,000 by the end of November, I might continue it. I might carry it over into December. I will obviously do my best, but as with most things, the like focused month is really good for me personally, because if I put a hold on a project, I almost never come back to it, which is
Right.
a bummer, but I just only have so much time.
Is this something that you'd want to see to like completion, like if you continue into December kind of thing?
Yeah, I think I would want to make it to 50,000, or at least carry it until the end of the story.
Right. Right, that's what I meant.
Yeah. And I will say this, because I don't want to promise anything about what is in it, but
sure.
I'm learning that my brain really structures things that I create like anime, where
there you go.
I was like writing it, and I was like, how come this has like very like bare continuity between these two? Oh, it's like episodes of an anime. That's why.
We are learning something from all this podcasting that we do. And
so that's quite interesting. I will say I probably should have figured out what the pacing of a 50,000 word novel should have been before I started writing. Because I'm a little bit in the dark here. Like, even though we're well enough into it that I should by all rights know, I'm still a little bit like we're about reaching the point where I should be halfway through it, and I think I'm on track for like a decent pace. Like, I don't think it's going too fast or too slow. If anything, it might be going too fast, but that's always a problem that I will have. So I can always go back and fill in details later is my thought process.
I would try and reach the natural progression of your story's end, and then figure out the like where the word count is after that. Like,
yeah.
You know?
I mean, the thing about NaNoWriMo is it's more about just getting raw words on page and not really worrying too much about it.
It's about quantity versus quality.
It's about building the habit of writing, which I would like to be in the habit of writing more and writing faster. But you know, that's a whole thing for another time. Yeah.
Well, you're learning about yourself and your writing and whatnot, which is good.
That is true. Okay, do you wanna talk about anime stuff?
Let's talk about fall 2018 anime.
Okay, so before we begin, there are 3 things that we will not talk about this episode that we should or will at the end of the season. We have not started Hero Aka yet, but it's more of My Hero Academia, and also this is one of my favorite arcs in the show, like in the series so far.
Yay.
It is legitimately one of the best arcs, I think, in My Hero Academia.
I'm excited.
So I'm excited for that. We haven't started it yet, mostly because of like scheduling stuff. We are not going to talk about Beastars as much as I want to, because we literally cannot watch it because Netflix is a fuck.
Netflix.
Like, it pains me so much how much Netflix is like reticent about releasing anime on a weekly basis, because it just makes it so much harder for us as like people who like survey the season to like really give you an opinion on it without just like straight up going out and pirating it, which is like something that we could do, but like we're in a position where we don't necessarily have to, so I would prefer not to.
Right. Like I would prefer that some like our money and our time is able to go in a way towards the original creators in some fashion. And
right. I'm just upset because I don't like that Netflix just waits, because it's not like that with like, okay, so it releases anime all at once because that's just how Netflix likes to do stuff, but they were releasing The Great British Bake Off weekly when it was airing. So it's not like they can't do it, it's just that they're just choosing not to.
They are definitely capable of it, and it's a shame because it's one of the reasons why we weren't able to review Carol and Tuesday.
Yeah, we're still waiting on it.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Like, it boggles my mind because honestly, like the only thing it does is it just buries shows.
Right, exactly. And it's like cherry picking these shows that we're really interested in seeing, which is, of course, you know, I guess would be the more strategic move on their part, right? They wouldn't want to pick a show that we wouldn't care about.
Right.
But
the only
still,
problem is
annoying.
it's kind of like having the opposite effect of what they're intending, where instead of like, oh, this show is probably going to be so good, I'm gonna wait till it's all out and then watch it. But really, people just lose interest. Like,
yeah,
people
they're
will
definitely
not
taking
be
a gamble.
okay. Like, here's the problem, right? Is that if you're like, okay, well, I mean, people would really want to watch, you know, Carol and Tuesday because the director's really famous, the studio's really well known. There's a lot of like clear love and attention that has gone into this series. But if you're gonna make us wait 24 weeks to watch it, we're not really gonna be that interested in it anymore, which is why it's better that they decided at the very least to release half of it. But still, the problem is the exact same. The anime is done, and
Right.
it should be coming out any day now on Netflix, and we will watch it. But
I feel like it's like Netflix as a company should, because they're in the media scene, they should know how quickly like an audience's attention span like just flips on a dime, right? Because shows are constantly coming out on their platform, on all the other competing platforms. Like it just keeps going on and on. It's endless. And so if you pick a show and you're like, hey, people will really want to see this, it's popular, et cetera, there's still a really good chance that a bunch of people are going to forget about it. You're going to lose all the people that would have hopped on just from the initial interest.
See, I blame sitcoms. I blame like Western sitcoms for this, because God knows the reason Netflix is so popular is because people are like, well, I watched 4 seasons of The Office yesterday at once. Like this idea of binge watching shows. And it's like,
yes,
I hate that you're not giving me the opportunity to do it, because there are so many people who will just wait when they know they're interested in something. But also, I want to watch it weekly.
Yeah, they're playing that gamble of like, should we cater towards the bingeability or should we release it weekly?
It's not even a real choice, I feel like, because like the people who want to binge it are going to binge it. The people who are going to watch it weekly are going to watch it weekly. You might as well give them the option. It's not like the episodes will go away.
Right, exactly.
So it is incredibly annoying that they do this. But unfortunately, that means we cannot talk about Beastars. It does mean we will be talking about Carol and Tuesday probably sometime in the next month. Hopefully. Because God knows I obviously really wanted to see it, and I'm upset that I couldn't just watch it when I wanted to watch it, but I will watch it anyway. Because whatever. And the last thing we will not be talking about, which we might be talking about at the end of the season, is Black Fox, because we learned that Black Fox is a movie. But it is on Crunchyroll.
Huh.
So I was really interested in it because the poster looked really cool, and that was mostly it, really. But if it's on Crunchyroll, then it should be fairly simple to watch it. We just have to find time to sit down and watch it. But yeah, that's our disclaimer about what we're not talking about. If there's anything else we're not going to talk about, it's because we didn't watch it, really. So, continuing this season is Dr. Stone, which I feel like we don't really have to explain why we like this show. We have spent the last 2 seasonal episodes talking about it. It is more of that. We talked about it in those episodes.
Yeah, we're keeping up with it because it's still
we're
great.
Up with it.
It's still keeping up.
There's been some fun like shonen twists where they're like, this is like the truth, and you're like, whoa, that's kind of cool. Yes. I think some of the expository episodes are a little slow.
Yes, they are.
Which is what I noticed, because the rest of the show is so fast paced and like when the drama happens, it really slows down a little bit.
Oh
I think
yeah, for sure.
it might be a little bit difficult to get through, but you might also really like it. I don't know. I'm not you. I'm me.
Yes.
Yes. But that's Dr. Stone. And next we're going to roll into a new season of an oldie, Shokugeki no Soma, or Food Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, good to have Shokugeki back.
I didn't realize how much I missed it until we started the first episode of this season, and I was like, oh.
I know what you mean, like, because I've been keeping up with it for basically years now, and the manga has just ended, and I recently went back and I read the last couple chapters, and I will say that the ending is pretty rushed. Like, it's clear that they're like, we're kind of done with this, whatever. Like this arc that the anime is in right now is kind of the big, like, technically it's the big denouement arc, and then the next arc after that is more of a, like, here's what it feels like. It feels like this is the, like, defeat the Demon King final boss arc, and then the next arc is the, like, Persona 4 Golden, now you fight God arc.
Oh.
Because and you might either like it a lot, or you might be incredibly exasperated because everything in it is such bullshit and it's amazing. Like, Shokugeki no Soma is like pretty fantastical as is.
Yeah.
Where it's like most of this stuff isn't super realistic anymore. It's still grounded in, like, the theory of cooking. But the next arc goes completely off the rails. It's like people are cooking with chainsaws, and that's good, apparently. And there's a clown that uses 2 woks as a ball that he juggles to cook food. So, like, it really does just go off the rails, and it makes no sense anymore. And I think I've kind of settled on the fact that I like it. I didn't like it to begin with because I always found that at least like the kind of grounding of the rest of the show was kind of integral to making it, like, work. But because it only lasted like one arc, it actually was not that big of a deal.
Okay.
So it just feels like a kind of fun, like, well, now everybody's level 99 battle arc, which is actually surprisingly fun.
All right.
It's surprisingly fun, and the manga's done, so I bet we're I don't know how long this season of Shokugeki is going, but I bet we'll get, like, season 5, and that will just be the last one. Food Wars is not super long for this world, and I'm kind of actually glad about that. It has sort of I think it immediately realized when it hit the point where it was done telling what story it was telling, and was like, okay, let's wrap it up.
Yes,
Kind of just packed up its bags and dipped, which I really appreciate, because God knows some shows just bleach go on for much longer than they need to.
Yeah, I'm glad that they're not going to drag it out any more than this, because I can feel it. I can feel, at least even in the season, it's like, all right, we're kind of chugging. Like, I'm sure they're building up to something pretty big, but I think after that we ought to be good,
Yeah, and you can tell because, like, any fight that's not like a big mainline fight is, like, pretty condensed. It's just like,
yes.
Before, where it would take, like, 4 or 5 episodes to resolve a prolonged battle. Now it's like 3 of them happen in one episode.
Yep, it's true.
So
you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yes. The pace of it, it's really fast now. It's very engaging. Like, the episode starts and then I'm like, wait, it's over?
Right. Yeah. I'm like, wow, they really packed it in there.
Yeah. It's kind of nice, actually. It reminds me a lot of when I used to watch a lot of shonen stuff, because it's like, I want the next episode right now, man. Which is how I felt when I was reading the manga for this arc as well. The Shokugekis are so fucking good. They're so good.
They're fun, dude.
They're really fun because I think the older characters are making, like, a comeback in a very interesting way. I wish they would do a little bit more with some of the smaller characters in the Polo Star dorm, But
yeah, me too.
I understand why they can't really do that.
Yeah.
But I did love the fact that Mimasaka comes back, and
Yes.
then you have the Shokugeki with Aldini, who's just like, I took his technique.
Oh my
It was
God.
extremely like, oh my God, that moment was so good. It was extremely JoJo.
It was the most satisfying.
It was such a like part 2 JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like, the next thing that you're gonna say is this, and then he's like, this. Oh.
How did you do that?
And he's like, I'm gonna use a bunch of artichokes to fuck up the taste of your thing. He's like, I've already adjusted for that because I knew you would do it because I traced you. And he's like, whoa. And then you of course have Azan, who is voiced by Tomokazu Sugita.
Yeah, I was gonna
and
say he continues to be a legend.
makes by far, and this is true in the manga as well, the best faces in the entire series. Like, they're so grotesque and amazing. Like, he gets so upset. It's so good to watch.
Oh man.
It's very good television, I'll tell you that. Tell you that. I didn't realize how long it had really been since the last season of
Right.
Food Wars. I'm kind of surprised it actually took this long to make another one, but I guess they were waiting until they had enough for like a I don't know. Are they doing like 2 cours or what?
I have no idea.
It doesn't say.
No. I guess we'll find out.
Fair enough. I mean, I think that if you really liked the more grounded parts of the first couple arcs, you might not like this because it really does start to ramp up. But personally, Shokugeki has always been a little bit ridiculous, so the fact that they're embracing it is kind of fun. Like, they're having fun with it, and I do appreciate that. And it's not like Shokugeki was ever like a super serious show to begin with.
Sure.
So, yeah.
All right.
I highly recommend it if you like, you know, cooking battle or battle shonen, but with cooking. It's very exciting. It's very fun. Like, it's just a really fun show to watch. Like,
Yes.
and there's a lot to be said about that, honestly.
I mean, yes.
There's stuff that's like really good,
right.
but not super fun to watch, and then there's stuff that's
Yes.
like really fun to watch.
Yes, I think it does exactly what it wanted in terms of what it set out to do, which is a fun cooking battle show, and that's what it is.
Okay, that's all the continuing stuff. Let's get into new stuff, which we've watched a little bit of, and Renu has watched much more than me apparently. But let's start with something that we watched together because I made Renu watch it. It's Ore o suki nano wa omae dake kayo, or Are You Really the Only One Who Likes Me, or Oresuki if you don't like, you know, putting a bunch of popcorn kernels in your mouth and waiting for them to pop to say an anime name. So this show, I read the manga for a while ago, and I thought it was something else. Like, I got this mixed up with something else. Not the beginning bit, but like the later arcs, because I thought it would go a different place than the manga actually does go. So now I have to track down what the fuck else I was reading that was the other one, because that one was really interesting too. But so this is a high school harem rom-com, kind of. Because ultimately it is like, ultimately it is a rom-com harem show where like the main character has a bunch of girls that like him. But the gimmick of the show is that in the course of the first episode, he realizes that everybody who he thought was pining for him was not, and it was in fact pining for his best friend, and that's fun. And the only person who likes him is the
opposite
stalker.
of Ore Monogatari.
What's funny about this is it is a little bit more lighthearted than, but in the same vein as shows like Oregairu, which I love dearly. This one is not nearly as intense, but it does hit some similar-ish notes. But ultimately, like, you know, it's a rom-com harem show. It's fun. It's actually really, really funny. Like, the twists that happen in it are quite amusing to watch.
Yes, I actually am having a lot of fun, like, going through the story with these crazy characters that
they're really wild.
Man, none of them is like a completely good person or bad person, which I'm good with that.
Yeah, the best part about the show is the fact that they're all just kind of being silly all the time.
Yeah.
They're all just being ridiculous.
Yeah. I like how honestly shameless a lot of them are.
Yes. It's like that's the thing about it is it's a very like honest show about both what it is, like it kind of twists and plays fun at the genre it is in, while at the same time basically just being an example of that genre. It's not a parody is the thing, right? It's not a parody, it's not really satirical. It's just self-aware is all. Like, it's a little bit funny because it's like self-aware about what it is, and it's not like...
Yeah, I think it parodies a couple of things in a way and just blows them out of proportion, just like The Bench or whatever.
I think it's parodic in nature.
Yeah.
But it's not like a straight parody where like...
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So you have a rant about the first episode, huh?
Oh my god, dude. I mean, you... All right. Let's start by summarizing our watch experience for the first episode. I spent the entire first 15 minutes of this episode not paying attention to what was happening because my eyeballs were too distracted by one thing that is a constant throughout the entire show, which I yelled at Soup about so he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Having watched a lot more of the show now, I think we're like 6 episodes in. Mm-hmm. I've had more time to kind of analyze what's going on. So if you watch this show, and especially if you watch it with subtitles, you'll notice that even maybe if you wear glasses, that they might be a little foggy, or if you got eyeballs that you're just looking at with the screen, or using to watch the screen, the show looks a little bit blurry. And if you see it in contrast to subtitles, the subtitles will look really clear. And so when we first started watching this episode, Soup was actually like adjusting the video player to see if it was actually in HD because we couldn't tell because the show was blurry.
Yes.
And it looks like there's like maybe like a 2 to 4 pixel blur over literally everything. There's nothing that is in HD like perfectly crisp. Everything is blurry. Yeah.
It's
and
bad.
And there are certain moments where they'll use like a blur vignette, so the edges look even blurrier than the middle, or they'll use like a DSLR kind of effect where they'll blur the background, like the things that are out of focus, and then put in focus like, you know, the foreground elements or whatever they're focusing on, right? Which is practical reasons to use a blur effect, except that there's a blur on literally the entire show. And so I was like stressing over this for like the entire day afterwards. I was thinking about it. I was like, why would they do that? Why would they do that? What were they doing? And it comes down to the fact that they, in my opinion, they ended up using what's called like a bloom effect, which you typically use with like kind of like dreamlike sequences, right? Because it adds a little bit of that blur, but it also adds a glow to whatever lighting that you have. So any kind of like white lighting, blue lighting, anything like that, it'll add a bit of like a little bit of a halo around it kind of thing to soften it, right? And you, again, like I said, you use it for like dreamlike sequences or to make a scene look really soft or kind of emotional. Like you'll see it in like HyoAni works. You actually see it in stuff like 28 Days Later too, when in the beginning when he's like wandering through the town or the city, it's like a very like kind of like dreamlike sequence or whatever. You use it then, or you might use it in a game when you're like emerging from like a dark area into an area with very specific lighting. It'll add like a little glow to the light to kind of soften it versus like a flat geometric object, right? So that's what it's generally used for, and it's very beautiful. And there are times in this anime where it's gorgeous. They use it perfectly where like they kind of zoom into the girl's face and she's conveying like a sorrowful emotion, right? And it's kind of like the camera's a little bit unfocused because, you know, she's so emotional, right? It's perfect for those kinds of scenes. But they do it for everything.
Yes.
The bloom effect is on literally the entire show. And so the entire show is a little bit blurry. And I am trying to figure out why. And the only thing I can think of is that I'm hoping that this isn't the reason. Is that they kind of wanted to be a little bit artsy and different with their art direction, right? Because obviously this anime, because of this stupid bloom effect, looks quite different from every other anime that we watched this season.
Yeah.
But there's so many specific ways to use this one effect. You don't use it as a canvas effect on everything. You would use like a levels effect on the entire animation because that balances your lights and your darks, right? That's a sensible effect to use across an entire episode or an entire show, but not a bloom effect which adds a blur, and especially not when you have absolutely nothing in the show that's in HD. And so you have this beautiful animation, right? This animation, the style of the art is actually pretty, and they actually put work into how the characters are moving and how it's shot and all these camera angles and everything. Like, it's actually a well-directed show. Why on earth would you add a bloom effect at the end? Why would you blur all of that hard work? It makes me angry as an animator. I was so angry when I watched the first episode.
Yeah.
Now I've just come to terms with it. Now I'm just like, I can't change how the show is. I'll just watch it for the story. But honestly, I'd rather read the manga at this point.
You know what? Having read the manga recently, I would recommend against it highly, actually. The anime is much better.
Well, that's a shame then, because it's almost unwatchable. Like the first, I think we watched like the first 2 episodes, I was like, I'm starting to get a headache because my mind is, first of all, rather emotional right now over how they blurred everything. And second of all, like my eyeballs are like unable to make sense of why it's just a little bit blurry versus the subtitles being extra clear. Like it
Yes, yeah. It's really jarring. I will say I was hoping that was an effect that would wear off once like the confessions came out and they were like,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
That's what I was hoping, and it just didn't.
It didn't. It kept
just
going.
didn't.
I was hoping too. I was like, maybe this is just a thing, like a bit that they're doing, like the bench or whatever. They're only going to use it for specific moments, or like this whole part of the first scene because this is where all the confessions are going. No, it's for everything. And it makes it such a pain to watch. And I can't imagine like if I was an animator working on this and then I see the final cut of the episode and it's blurred over all my hard work, I would pitch a fit.
Yeah, the thing is, because it's so blurry, like it doesn't like here's the thing is that like blurriness as a thing can work if you're trying to go for a very specific aesthetic. Like if you are like a Megalobox aiming for that, like, well, all the lines are like really scratchy and all the like colors feel like they're painted onto cells.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
But that's not what this anime is going for clearly.
Exactly.
And it just looks like it's just fuzzy and not that interesting, which is a shame because you're right that the actual animation is actually pretty good.
Right. And it's paired with like some awesome voice acting. Like, oh my god, it's so good.
The voice acting is fantastic. They chose like an amazing person to voice the main character.
Yes.
Like anytime he says something in English is so funny.
Oh, it's so funny.
Perfect.
His voice acting alone is hilarious.
Yes. The voice acting in the show is like the voice direction is top notch. Like it's so fucking funny.
Yes.
It's also really, really, like, because this is the sampler episode, I won't spoil what happens beyond the fact that nobody actually likes him. Like, they all confess to him where they're like, I like your best friend. That happens in the first episode. Don't worry about that. It goes so far beyond that. It just takes that basketball and it just fucking yeets that sucker into the like, you know, fucking football goal.
Yeah, it goes past the basketball goal. It goes to the football field.
Yeah, he's got like a like a kick goal. I wish I knew what sports were.
Oh man, you are trying
He throws the basketball and he hits a home run. That's it. There you go. Sports are not my wheelhouse. Although I did recently learn that the term "in your wheelhouse" is a baseball term. Which is deliciously relevant to one of the jokes in this show. The wheelhouse is the area in a batter's like strike zone where they're more likely to hit a home run.
Wow, how about that?
So there you go. There's a fun fact that that we learned together. So this is actually quite a good show. I think overall, if you can get past the blur effect, which is quite egregious. Like when the second episode started and it was still there, we were like, ugh.
Yeah, no, it was
by
upsetting.
episode 6, you're pretty used to it, though. You just have to come to grips with it.
Basically get used to it. I'm still upset about it, but I've learned to live with it, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't actually think that the second arc was all that good when I was reading it in the manga, but actually it's a lot better in the anime. Yeah, and I think something about the way that they've it must be an adaptation thing. Like the adaptation of the manga adaptation seems like it was pretty like haphazardly done, and then also haphazardly translated, which does contribute to it. But the anime actually looks quite good, and it seems like the writing is pretty sharp, which I have to assume comes from the light novel, but surely is also part of the like directing of the show itself. Like the comedic timing is quite good. And boy, when like the third episode drops and you're like figuring out what the hell is happening in this goddamn school, you're like, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you're like, oh, okay, well, and this is the problem that I had where I was like, well, after that fucking roller coaster, where could this possibly go? And then the second arc has kind of a similar arc to it, and then you're like, okay, well, yeah, I suppose so. That where do we go now?
Now I don't know where we're going now.
I'm so lost as to what could possibly happen next, and I'm so intrigued, and I had to go peek at the light novel illustrations for the next like 2 volumes, and there's so many new characters.
They keep adding more and more characters.
And they're all based out on flowers.
Oh, great.
Yeah. This is a show that I'm looking forward to talking about at the end of the season, because then I can sort of dive into it and get my hands dirty, just kind of rooting around.
Right.
It's pretty decent for like a high school rom-com. Like, yeah. It's not as viciously intense as something like Oregairu is. And even the thing about Oregairu is like, I feel like there's a point after which it starts to be about something else, which I have feelings about. Maybe we'll do an episode on it next year, because that is one of my, like, I like that show a lot, animes. But yeah, if you have not completely given up on the idea of like high school rom-coms, this might actually not be a bad one to watch. It's actually pretty funny and engaging.
Yeah, I'm hit or miss on rom-coms, and this one was, it's a nice hit. Like I've been laughing, which is great. Yeah, I've been engaged too.
It is silly. It's much sillier than something like Scum's Wish, which is like high drama, like extreme dumpster fire. I was over that. Which, I mean, there's definitely a place for, but like this is much easier to digest. I will say, because it's not as intense. I can't wait to talk about it at the end of the season. That's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah. Maybe watch it in SD, because if you watch in HD, you'll just be frustrated.
Yeah. See if you can downgrade your subtitles.
Yeah, downgrade the overall video quality and maybe it'll look appropriate.
Downgrade your subtitles and pretend you're in 2008. All right, let's talk about No Gun's life.
Big gun.
Big gun. So No Gun's life is about a man who is a gun. His face is a gun. And that's it. Like there's some stuff about like background stuff about why, but like it doesn't his face is a fucking gun.
It's funny that you mentioned Megalobox because they also in this show like revisit like a nostalgic kind of art style, like older, kind of like looking almost like a Hellsing / Trigun-esque style, about people who are guns.
Yeah, it's basically about people with like augmentations, which is to say like prosthetics, and then some people took that a little bit far in the war when the mega corporations were like, what if we just turned a person into a gun? What if we just turned a person into a gun? So they did that. And
it's definitely over the top, obviously.
It's
because gun man.
I will agree. It's so it's extremely a noir story.
Yes.
Like at the very least, it borrows very heavily from noir aesthetic conventions. Like the main character is like a hard-boiled, grizzled dude.
Bro, he's
remembers
so hard-boiled.
little about his past, and he loves to smoke cigarettes and not care about feelings.
He's too afraid to get close to anyone because he's afraid he's just gonna hurt him.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's at the very least visually quite interesting. I will say that the pacing of it is a little bit slow. Like, it's a little slow for my liking. Because like the thing is, it would be fine if it was slow for any discernible reason, but it just isn't really. Like, it just seems that everything takes like 5 years to do. Which is
and it feels like I keep getting like these like FMA like vibes because of the way that they sometimes draw Gunhead Man, like when they draw him like cartoon like the way that he looks is a bit Alphonse.
It's very Alphonse.
And then of course there's Mechanic Girl who is like blonde hair, blue eyed, like sarcastic Winry, basically.
Yeah, you got gritty
like
Winry,
she's like
gritty
poor
Alphonse. Baby Edward.
Yeah.
He's baby. Yeah. I wish it would ramp up a little faster. To be honest, it's so slow. It's like so slow.
Yeah, I think I think part of the pacing is like because it is reminiscent of older 90s anime, that those anime had quite the slow pacing too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now that I think about it, the pacing on those was glacial.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting watch. Like, we've been watching it and having a good time, but that might partially be because we're watching it with friends versus, by ourselves.
I don't know how much it could hold my attention if I was just watching it alone.
I wanted to get more interesting soon, but it's kind of like, I don't know, just
that's how I'm feeling too. And mind you, like, we are halfway through the season at this point. Like, we're caught up to these shows.
Yeah.
For the most part. So, like, there is no reason that 6 episodes into the... Like, unless this show is going to go for 50 episodes continuously, there's no reason this part should be so slow.
Yeah. Like,
things should be happening. And they are, but even when they happen, they're happening quite slowly.
Yeah.
I just think that everything about it could be a little bit tighter, because other than that, like, I really like the character designs. I think they're really interesting. I really want to see more of Gunhead do Gunhead stuff. I'm vaguely interested in, like, the the plot of it, but it's kind of meandering right now, which is part of why it feels so slow. Yeah, I don't know. If I was watching this alone, I probably wouldn't continue past this point because it's just
Same. Yeah.
it's just like it's not offering enough to me. Like, it's not offering me the promise of any, like, reasonable payoff. So unless I get to see Gunhead Man, like, really fuck some shit up, like...
Yeah.
It's kind of whatever. It's interesting. If you like noir vibe stuff, you might like this. It's like cyberpunk noir.
Yeah, it's an easy watch, too. It's like, you don't have to think very deeply about it. Just let it happen.
You know, it's not like... It's not like super cyberpunk, but it is cyberpunk.
Yeah.
It's cyberpunk, but it's not the neon cyberpunk. It's like the gritty cyberpunk.
Yeah, it's the gritty, kind of like Western's cyberpunk of like Western as in like cowboys Western.
I was gonna say that'd be funny if you meant Western cyberpunk in the sense of like cyberpunk as imagined by Western audiences, because that gets into an entire conversation about like Orientalism and the aesthetics of cyberpunk, which is very important because cyberpunk has a lot to say about aesthetic, while at the same time being like, look at all this wacko Asian shit, but there's no like Asian people around for whatever reason. Anyway, cyberpunk is from the 80s, and it's really anxious about all that crap about like Asian imperialism economically. Anyway, a whole lot of discussion.
Yes, Mr. Literature Major.
Yes, I there was a thing that I did some stuff about. Anyway, it's okay. I think No Guns Life is okay. It's definitely
fine.
I think the lowest on my priority list of things to watch this season.
Yeah, it's not high on my list either.
No, and I will say part of it is just because some of them are like old favorites, and some of them are actually surprisingly good. Like Oreski's surprisingly good, and the next one we're going to talk about is surprisingly good.
Yeah.
So while there's not like a billion amazing shows out this season, it feels like a little bit of a slower season. There are some gems, like some things that are quite worth watching. I would say. I would say Oreski is worth watching, and I would very much recommend the next show that we're going to talk about, which is Babylon.
Babylon.
Which is about a public prosecutor, or I guess he is a public prosecutor, but he's like a prosecutor in like the special branch of the government, and he gets locked in a mystery conspiracy regarding a Tokyo 2, basically. Like, they invent a new city in Tokyo because they're like, we can't have Tokyo be the only city in Japan. So they make a new one in the city limits, and they're like, this is another city with its own unique laws that are outside of Japan. And there's like a whole conspiracy about and I think it's kind of an interesting conversation about like the legalization of suicide.
Yeah, and and about pharma companies in general, and
right? About like corporate influence. I will say this is extremely a content warning for suicide show.
Oh,
because
big
there's
content
a
warning.
lot of it.
There's a lot of people who die in this show.
Yeah. And
they're aiming to have an intimate discussion about it too.
Yeah, because they're bringing up, and I'm wondering if they will like actually have anything interesting to say about it, because they did bring up like the idea of assisted suicide and of like, you know, like no resuscitation clauses or whatever.
Yes.
So I'm interested in that part of it. There's like a weird undercurrent about like about the like main antagonist, who is a woman who just makes the sex pheromones real good. So the people
she's
are
like a woman who can be like any woman and
there's like
any man.
There's like a lot of weird shit that happens. Like she's basically like three different women, or like about she appears as three different women, but is the same person. So she can change her appearance.
Yes.
But also she, and this is the wording of the show itself, and it's a, you know, like a content warning for assault thing, but like it is there. Basically, everyone who ever interacts with this woman is like, she raped me, but like not with her body, with her mind.
Yeah, like they make a point in saying that all she does is talk to them, and yet they feel as violated as if she had assaulted them.
Yeah, and it's the whole show revolves around the idea that she might be influencing people with her psychology magic to kill themselves in a space where killing yourselves is legalized.
Right.
And it is interesting because I think that the space of like, well, this is a test bed for new forms of society could possibly be interesting. I'm wondering if that will really do anything with that aside from having that just be the contrivance needed for, well, suicide is legal now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm so interested in the direction of the show, and because like I feel like Japan is like really good at making these kinds of stories that are like really interesting thought experiments. It's like, what if this thing happened? What if this thing happened?
Yeah.
But like the execution of it is always kind of shaky. Like Sekai Suru Kaido, the Cube anime.
I was just thinking about that one. Yeah.
Like, I'm so scared that this show will go in that direction, and I really don't want it to be because it started off so interestingly.
I don't think it'll go aliens.
I mean, I'm fine that it went aliens or like, you know, 4D beings or whatever. Like, I'm fine that it explained it in that way, but that the fact that it kind of went off the rails at the end and was more about like the drama of like, oh, we choose to be human, we want to stay this way, we don't want to progress. Like, I liked the angle of it in the beginning where they were introducing the fact like, what would people do if they had an infinite energy source plopped right into their lap? What would they do? And they never went anywhere with it. They just sat on it.
Yeah.
Which I understand, like, yeah, it's dangerous or whatever. Like, they talked about what could happen, like, oh, if these countries might fight over it, blah, 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 blah. But then it devolves into, like, really personal human drama, which I'm fine if that is, like, a part of the plot, but I think the overarching plot just kind of got lost. And
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and so
like
it was
what
really
people told me.
unsatisfying to watch the end. And so I'm hoping that with this one, they don't lose the overarching discussion that they're conveying about, like, you know, society and corporations and what is right versus wrong in terms of like these people taking their own lives. Is that right because it's according to the law that they're allowed to do that, or is it wrong because you're influencing them to do this thing and you're providing them like a really easy drug for them to take in order to take this route, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm really interested. I think this antagonist, the female antagonist, is the way that they animated her is super interesting. Like, episode 2 was like, holy cannoli.
Well, that was the thing that immediately kind of caught us about this show. Was the fact that the actual shot composition and direction of the show is actually like visually very good.
Very good.
The way that they use angles and effects is actually really effective, as opposed to like, you know, Oriski, which is just like everything blur. Like, Babylon actually understands when and why to use like weird shots to like make you uncomfortable as a viewer, and it works really well. Like, this is definitely an episode. This is definitely an anime that I would give 2 episodes if you're deciding to, whether you want to watch it or not.
Yes, 100%.
It's adapted from a novel and not a light novel or a manga, which I think explains a lot about the maturity of the plot. Because it is a darker show.
I can sense that, yeah, and I'm hoping because it's based off of a novel that it won't go the same way as the Cube anime, and it'll have some depth to it that'll keep it going.
And I will say this: the first like 5 or so episodes play out like both a detective like police procedural and a political lawyer show.
Yes.
Which is very interesting because the main character is a prosecutor and he's trying to build a case against this conspiracy essentially. And it gets into some it kind of takes a turn from detective procedural into political procedural. And then we're kind of back in detective mode. It's just, I think, where we are.
Yeah.
So it cycles between them in an interesting way. And I'm wondering how the rest, this is extremely a show where the way they land the ending matters so much for the rest of the show that it's really hard to say anything about it definitively.
Yes. I'd say right now the pacing feels quite good. I think I would only say there were only maybe a handful of moments where it felt a little bit slow because they were doing exposition talk or whatever, but for the most part things are happening and I'm I keep watching, I'm things just keep progressing.
Right. Things happen, they happen fast and they happen hard. You expect it to be this one, and that's part of the cycling, which is you expect it to be this one thing and then suddenly just
yes. In the beginning, you expect it to just be kind of a political, maybe a murder mystery kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
And then it expands, and then it keeps expanding. And I'm what is this? This is crazy.
Yeah. At current, the plot, at current halfway through, at least I think it's a 12-episode show. I might be wrong. It is very engaging. The plot is pretty complex.
Right, yeah. You expect a lot of shows, at least maybe something that you might see on, I don't know, your typical drama, TV drama or whatever, would run with one of these plots. This one murder mystery, this one political conspiracy, and kind of go with that for the rest of the show. But this just kind of builds on top of each thing, one after another.
Yep.
Yeah,
so
I'm really, I'm invested.
I like that it's kind of dark, and it's very serious in a way that isn't overly silly.
Yes,
when something is too serious,
yes,
it can very, very, very easily slip into being silly because it just doesn't realize how ridiculous it's being. And I think Babylon toes that line well enough that it's not coming across. The stakes actually feel somewhat meaningful. You're somewhat invested in the characters, especially after the what happens in I think the first episode.
In the very first episode, dude.
Stuff starts happening in the first episode, because it starts off a little bit I'm not really sure what's going on. It's he's a lawyer and he's a public prosecutor and he's in charge of shutting down pharmaceutical companies that do whack shit, and then it starts going somewhere and it doesn't stop.
Yeah, it's just kind of full speed ahead. Let's go.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the rest of this show. It has a very good chance of being the best thing that comes out this season. That's not, Hero Aka, because that's
fingers crossed, dude.
Amazing. Yeah. The animation actually in Babylon is not that bad.
Yeah, no, it's good.
From the outset, I was a little worried.
Had a problem with it.
I was a little worried, but it.
Yeah, I was worried too, actually.
It kind of pulls through. The characters are definitely adults. They look like adults. They're drawn and animated like adults. And it doesn't look bad or cheap either. There are moments when the animation clearly isn't god tier animation. This is 3 frames of movement. But I think it gets the point across well enough, and the shot direction is good enough to support that. I think part of the reason why this show works so well is because of the direction of it really making up for what they're probably lacking in animation budget.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're interested in mystery thrillers, Check it out. Check it out.
Yeah.
I see the studio that does Babylon has only ever done 2 anime before. One of them was in 2017. Was a music video called Deep Blue Song, and the other one was Furikuri Alternative.
Oh, interesting.
So that's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of stuff that's like a little bit more serious, like definitely a little bit more like on the heavy side. Because interestingly, we don't actually get a ton of anime that executes that very well. Like,
yeah,
a lot of anime is very, because it's aimed at a very specific audience. Like Shonen Jump is obviously aimed towards kids, and shoujo manga is like, you know, young girls or whatever, and it's not really like even the older male audiences, like the things that appeal to them are, or the things that people make that appeal to them tend to be like magical girl shows and like stuff like that. Like, it's interesting to me how much anime kind of lacks for stuff like this, where it's just like, I don't want to say down to earth, but it's like very grounded. Like
and it's not like I feel like when they do, it's kind of boring. Like they don't
oh
know
my
how to
God,
execute
yes.
it properly.
Like, the thing is, when they execute it properly, it becomes very, very good. Like, what was that show? Is it like Fune wo Amu or something? It's the one about the dictionary. I hear that one was really good. Obviously, Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju is probably one of the best anime of the entire decade, and that tackles such like heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I love stuff like this. I'm glad we're getting it, because sometimes it's like, even what was that one show you watched like a couple seasons ago that was about like the people who can stop time?
Oh no, I forgot the name.
Yeah, it's fine. People will not know what we're talking about either, and that's fine. Like, even that, to me, the sort of premise of it seems a little bit like whatever, right? Like,
no,
it doesn't have the gravity that this has.
Yeah, it didn't feel as sharp as this one.
Yeah. Babylon seems like it seems like it has something that it might want to say, which is
Kokoku.
Yeah. Because it's not like super fantastical or anything. It's literally just like, this could probably not, but theoretically could happen in our world. Like, it's just somebody is really like too charismatic for their own good, which happens in real life, and we're testing new governmental policies, which is mostly just like a setup to do this. Like, it falls within the realm of like what you would accept verisimilitude wise in a novel.
Yeah, and I feel like the way that it's going, it's not like too condensed in terms of like, you know, getting too caught up in the technicalities, but it's also not too heavy in terms of, yes, the stakes are high, but also you don't feel like it's like a slog to like kind of like keep watching and getting more sad or depressed or angry or whatever. Like you keep watching because you're curious.
Yes, yeah. It is. It's a good watch. I will.
Yeah.
I'm gonna maybe think about it in contention for like maybe the best thing that's airing this season. Like,
yeah, we'll have to see with the end. I'm very curious.
Okay, let's move on to a lighter note and talk about, briefly probably, Shin Chuuka Ichiban, which is New Cooking Master Boy. This, what a fucking throwback and a half.
Bro.
So this is just a continuation of this is a continuation of a show that aired in the 90s.
Yeah. If it looks even vaguely familiar, you might have seen it back in the 90s.
This is like the OG like cooking battle show.
Yeah, big OG. Oh my god, dude.
Big OG. It's just about a boy whose mom dies, and then he becomes good at cooking and wins awards and stuff, and he goes around China.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the plot.
Chinese food.
It's good. Like the animation is quite good. It's been updated to be in line with modern sensibilities, but the art style is still very heavily like this clearly very 90s 80s 90s sort of thing.
Yeah.
The story is very much like that as well. It's very episodic.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. Like,
I think that's totally fine.
It's kind of refreshing,
it keeps
to be
in line
honest.
with the previous, like, or prequel or whatever, the original show. So I think that's dope. More.
Yeah,
More
absolutely. This is definitely one to watch. Like, if you like cooking, bam. If you like competition shows, bam.
Bam.
You like 90s
show, bam.
Bam. Yeah, very old school sensibilities, very charming,
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
still holds
Yeah.
up. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a timeless piece. It's a timeless piece that's been
Yes.
given a new lease on life. I highly recommend it. Makes chicken
He
stew.
makes chicken in a first episode.
He does. It's very good. All right, let's talk about what you watched, because you watched a lot of stuff. I have nothing to contribute to this part, so
I'll quickly go over it.
get it.
The first thing I watched was Psycho Pass 3. I kind of forgot they were coming out with a third season, so I was really excited when it came out.
Nice.
They are starting with a new team, so it's not starring Akane Tsunemori or Shinya Kogami. It's new peeps. The old peeps do make cameos, but it's all about these two new protagonists. One of them has an interesting power. He has the power basically of being an empath, except he uses it to catch criminals. It's kind of fantastical in that sense, because he's kind of able to, if he's able to find like the location of where a criminal has been, he can sort of retrace where they went or how they felt at that time, like that kind of stuff, to a limited extent. The balance of that is that as a result, because he's tapping into a criminal's mindset, his own crime coefficient ends up rising, and so if he stays in that mode for too long, he'll be registered as having the crime coefficient of a dangerous criminal.
That's interesting.
And yeah, it's really interesting. So he has a partner who can kind of like pull him out of it and like, help him manage it. But it's I think it's an interesting angle, and so I'm interested in seeing where it goes.
Wow.
The next thing that I watched was Kabukichou Sherlock. It was just kind of like, why not? It's Sherlock. I'm gonna watch it. It's very weird. It's kind of like, it feels like one of those shows that's just quirky to be quirky and weird. And if you like quirky different things, then this could be a show to watch. It's basically if Sherlock worked in like the red light district with a couple of other detectives, and they compete over cases to solve, and whoever solves the case first gets the money reward from the client. Yeah, I don't know. It's strange, and there's a Watson, and he's desperately trying to get Sherlock to solve the case, his own case, but he doesn't have the muns to properly hire him, and so he's just kind of like tagging along until he can convince Sherlock to help him with his own case. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. The only thing that I'm actually interested in is the character whom they portrayed as Moriarty, whom is this like high school kid. And
of course,
and Sherlock's like this old dude. Yeah.
What kind of anime would it be if it wasn't?
Right. And so now I'm like, okay, and he has pink hair, and I'm like, all right, cool. What's up with you, man? And they're kind of like foreshadowing a few things here and there.
So you're basically telling me it's like it's like Sherlock Holmes, but Moriarty is Robert Jacobi.
I mean, you can interpret it how you want. But it's okay. It's an okay anime. It's fine to have like on in the background, but I wouldn't pay a whole lot of attention to it because it's not. It's fine.
Fair enough.
The next one, Hoshiai no Sora. I'm actually really invested in this, and I might make you watch a little bit of it too.
Okay.
At least maybe like 1, 2, I think 3 episodes is where it's like, lock it in. Do you want to watch it or not?
I was going to say, you've written here soft anime about soft tennis boys.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
That's more of your thing than mine. But the next thing says, with a hard left turn. And that has caught my attention.
Yes. So the anime is about a soft tennis club, which, if you guys know, like softball, it's like baseball with a soft ball. Soft tennis is tennis with a soft ball.
What? Wait, what? You're joking, right?
No, I'm not.
What?
Joking.
That's not real? I'm looking this up right now. Oh my god, it's real! What? Soft tennis differs from regular tennis in that it uses soft rubber balls instead of hard yellow balls. It is played primarily in Asia. Okay, that's why I don't know about this
There
fucking
you
thing.
go. That's why we haven't heard of it over here.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and
What
so
does a soft tennis ball look like? Huh. How about it?
it's a nice anime because they teach you from the ground up because one of them is like a newbie player. They teach him from like the very basics of like form and posture and how to hold a racket and how to not swing it at your your teammates and stuff like that. And then it like, god dang, the hard left turn is like the post-credit scene on the first episode. So like the badminton anime
Yes.
that we watched?
Uh-huh.
So it's in terms of like the action or animation or whatever, it's not as like highly produced. Obviously, it's a soft show versus the badminton anime is like a hard show.
Yes,
right?
correct.
But then they had some like hard human drama. The soft tennis anime, I would argue, has even harder human drama.
I mean, to be fair, it is possible to put drama in your show. It is much harder to resolve it in a satisfying way, as exemplified by that show.
Yes. So I'm really interested in seeing where they go with it. It's this one is also adapted from a manga. It's the juxtaposition between the soft tennis versus the hard drama is wild.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Maybe I'll watch it. Maybe if I have time, I'll watch it. That's a trick that I play where I'm probably not going to watch it because I don't have time to do anything.
I mean, I might make you watch it anyway. Like,
if you make me watch it, I'll watch it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one is another sports anime, Ahiru no Sora. Both of these anime end with no Sora. I mean, good luck. This one is about basketball. It's based on a manga that has been running for like 50 volumes.
Is this the Adachi Mitsuru thing?
Let me see, because I don't. It's written and illustrated by Takeshi Hinata.
Oh, okay. It's just very reminiscent of the style. It's probably just because it's old.
Yeah, it's old. I mean, it was first released in 2004, and it's been going ever since then. It's still going on now. I think that's crazy. So, it's not. It's a very, very typical shonen sports anime, at least from what I've seen from the first episode. And in that way, like, even though I do love sports anime in general because they're nice to just kind of play while I draw, I'm not really sold on this one.
Okay.
At least not yet. I don't know if I'll watch any more of it because I've got a bunch of other stuff that I'd rather watch. But
fair enough.
Yeah, if your thing is like general sports anime, this is very shonen. It would be right up your alley. It's about this kid who he's a bit small, and so playing basketball, that's kind of rough, but he's very passionate about basketball. And the school that he's attending, they basically don't have a basketball team. Like they do in name, but it's really used to like for kids to like slack off, you know. So yeah. But he wants to do the basketball, so get to follow his adventure.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's what I watched without you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so you watched something? Half of something?
Yes. Yeah. So I watched half an episode of Cautious Hero. The hero is overpowered but overly cautious. The reason I only watched half an episode was because I was watching it after I put together the notes waiting for Renu to be ready. It's as I expected, surprisingly cute.
Good.
So, like, I mean, I think that it's much harder for me to watch isekai than it is to read it, just because it's really much more of both a time and an attention investment.
Right.
Unless I was watching it while playing Grand Blue or something like that. And I will say that I think Cautious Hero is one of the better shows, like one of the better isekai shows. It's very reminiscent of Konosuba while also being like distinct. It's funny. Like it's relatively funny. Like I think it's not like Konosuba's like, you know, bust your gut laughing because some dumb stuff is happening.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of Tsukomi humor. It's a lot of like, oh, the main hero is like just ridiculous because he won't do anything without being prepared for it, like super over prepared. Like, she's like, well, we can go to the other world anytime you want. Well, like, you know, let's go. And he's like, no, what if I die? So I have to do push-ups and train until my body is ready. So he just spends the next week training.
Oh. He's gotta be One Punch Man.
He pretty much is, because his stats, like, the reason that he was chosen was because his stats were super overblown. Like, they're really, really strong for level 1. And he's also just ridiculously, impossibly overcautious. It's surprisingly good. I think you were right when you said that the animation is not, like, the best, but I think that the art style and the direction of it makes up for that.
Okay.
Like, they animate enough of it that it feels cohesive. Like, there's never a point where I think, like, well, this show just looks bad. Like,
right.
It's clear that it doesn't have as high of a budget as Konosuba did, because God knows the animation in Konosuba is just amazing. But I think it's dynamic enough when it needs to be. And otherwise it's kind of like understated. Like, there's a lot of kind of direct action, like direct movement into actions, like she's like sitting down one frame and then the next one she'll just be like complaining in a different pose, and like you can clearly tell that they don't have like a ton of animation budget, which is fine. Honestly, I think that the direction of it is good enough to warrant it. The voice acting is really good. It's fairly sharp. It's pretty like good at poking fun at isekais. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you just want kind of a like turn your brain off comedy, like this is not a bad one at all.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah. That's how I feel about it, at any rate. If you're not sick to death of isekai and you just kind of want something casual to watch, it's a pretty good one. It's a pretty good one, I would say. I would definitely say that. But yeah, that's it. That's all the anime that we got through. We might and I hate making promises because we're really bad at keeping them, but we might watch Vinland Saga this season because I know people that really like it, and God knows the manga is like accoladed to hell and back, so we might try to make the extra effort and watch it this season, because it's, I believe, still airing.
Yeah, you gotta catch up to me. I'm like 7 episodes in, something like that.
Okay, all right. Well, that's not too bad. I can manage that. It will also be a lot easier to do that once I have more time after my like Overwatch thing is done. But yeah. Was there anything else you'd like to say?
I think that's it.
All right.
You know,
Cool. Well then,
stay warm.
yeah. Okay. I mean, you
safe.
say that, but it was 72 degrees out today.
All
where I
right,
live.
listen, Mr. 72 degrees. It dropped down to freezing over here, so let's like.
You live in Texas. I don't think it's supposed to get that cold.
It's not, and yet.
And yet, oh, global warming. It's okay. We will never be cold again because our new weather condition is ash storm, which comes directly out of the fire condition we now have.
Yeah.
Because
so,
PG&E
like,
is
stay
a
warm.
fuck.
You
Suck
can keep your
that,
crisp
Pacific
72.
Gas and Electric.
Yeah.
Suck eggs.
Many eggs.
Many eggs. Cool. Well, why don't we wrap up? Where can we find you on the internet? And what are you up to this week? I don't remember what it was because it's been so long since we recorded.
Oh, you poor podcast host, you. I'm on Twitter and Tumblr and Twitch at SwanDrawn. You can find me on Instagram at swan.drawn. Now that I'm done with freaking Inktober, I might resume working on commissions. I also started playing the first Disgaea game on my stream.
Nice.
So that's been fun. I've been naming people after people in chat and having them choose which characters that they want to be and adding them to my army. So that's great. Yeah, it's a good time. If you want to come by.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
You can find me all the places at Literal Soup. I clearly do not have anything up on my itch page that is new. I was in over my head when I promised that I'll see you at the end of November because I will be continuing to write this novel. Oh, this is a fun like factoid because maybe one day our D&D sessions will come out. But a lot of the characters in my D&D game I'm repurposing for this novel. Also,
ooh.
Honestly, Renu, at this point, you could probably edit the sessions into video form if you've got nothing else to do.
Oh, you act like I don't have anything to do.
Listen, you said you just missed the hustle.
But now I have to catch up on podcast videos.
That's true. How far behind are we on those?
Like half a year, probably. Anyway, let's not think about that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We're doing our best here. we're a small 2-person team. Sometimes your entire house has no power for half a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, our last video was the JoJo episode.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware, all right?
Which admittedly was, I think, maybe one of the best episodes we've ever done.
It was fun.
At least in terms of editing, which is why I use it as our podcast promo. I had a lot of fun editing that one.
You did.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, I'm just gonna be writing this novel. Honestly, like, I'm so not online. I say that I'm extremely online, but I wish I wasn't. I posted the magic system that I use for my novel on my Twitter page, so I'll leave a link to that because I think it's a decent enough thread. And you get to pick the inner workings of my brain for how I think about stuff. Yeah, let's get to it. Our opening is by Scotty Network, and our ending is by Takuma Okada. Thanks for listening. The patron we'd like to thank today is Frostfall. Thanks, bud.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, bud. Make our jobs possible because good fucking god, the oh boy.
The sounds of someone caught in an ash storm.
No, I'm just thinking about like podcast upkeep stuff. Yeah, it really helps that that you're supporting the show because I don't really make money right now. So yikes. So yikes. Anyway, thanks for listening. What's our thing? It's like
See you next time.
Hey, that was pretty good. I almost got it. We almost said it at the same time, more or less. That was pretty good. All right. Thanks for listening.
Sayonara. また明日ね。